and you're on the lifeboat. People, you probably can recognize by that missing of the cool intro that we are going old school. Let me see if I can... There we go. Get this squared away here. Give me one moment. There we go. We're going to be going old school today, people. And the reason for that is that Mark will be... There we go. Sorry. Mark is going to be spending some time with his family. It's rare that all of them get together at the same time, but he is... there we go. He's got the entire family with him tonight, and he called and said, "Hey, would it be cool with you if you went old school? I'd kind of like to spend a little time with my family." And if there is not a more legitimate reason than to take a little time, I can't think of one. I really can't. So, seeing as I'm going old school, let's go over the rules. We're not going to talk about politics very much, and I would appreciate it if we keep politics out of there. Did I hear that that Elon Musk bought Coca-Cola and he's bringing cocaine back in the drink? No, I missed that one, but I'm not sure that would surprise me. He did. His purchase price had $4.20 in it, which everybody thought was fairly funny. That's funny, Leisure. It really is. The second thing is that it's okay to talk about religion if you're saying, "I'm going to keep you in my prayers. Thank God. We're praying for you," any of that kind of stuff. My God's better than your God, or here's why you're not going here's why you're not going to heaven. That one's probably more of a problem, and we don't want to do that. Also, as we've said so many times, if you can keep your language under control for 1 hour, that's a pretty good sign. If you can't keep your language under control for an hour, that's probably not such a good sign. So all of us, from time to time, probably let a string of curses fly. I know that there are certain watches that I work on that will cause that to happen, but I'm not going to do it here tonight, and I would ask that maybe you could do the same. Leisure says it's on Google today. My goodness. No, I did not see that. I'm hoping that's a joke. I think he'd have a tough time bringing the original recipe back, but Coca-Cola, the original brain tonic, I think that they'll probably not allow that one to happen. But no, I didn't see that. Honestly, I shouldn't say this since they're the parent company of the big red button, but I don't get around Google very much these days. I really don't. Occasionally I use them for some research, though. And then lastly, mean people stink. And we would like everybody here to be kind to one another. There's enough mean in the world that we don't need to do it here on the lifeboat, especially when you consider what the goal of the boat is, right? Kindness is our default currency, and it always has been, and it always will be. So let's be nice to one another. People, I got a lot of emails over the last, say, 4 or 5 shows from people that... for people who just got to the boat and didn't see some of the early stuff, there was a little bit of shock among some of the new folks that I have spent a decent amount of time incarcerated. And I'm going to take that as a compliment. Normally when someone says that they're surprised that, that you were locked up, it's usually not an insult. Right? If they said, "Wow, I'm surprised you didn't do more time," then that one probably would have left more of a mark in terms of hurting my feelings. But there were people that wanted me to talk more about my prison experience, and I don't know that that's necessary. There are some shows that we've already filmed where I talk a fairly decent amount about prison. However, I do want to talk a little bit about prison in general, not necessarily my personal experience, although I'm sure that'll worm its way into this at least at some level. But, we talk all the time about addicts, and we talk about how doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity, And it's something that addicts do all the time, right? We stop getting high and, hey, Lady Fiona Crispin, good to see you, Lady Fiona. We stop using and we get chemical free, and then we hang out with the same people. We do the same things. We live the exact same lifestyle, but we think somehow it's going to be different this time around. Well, that's insanity, right? And I think we can all agree on that. However, when the country does it, nobody seems to give them hell. But allow me to. The government has been doing the same thing with our prison system for a very long time. And in doing so, they seem to be expecting a different result. If you go back to the 1970s, which is right around the decade that I was born in 1970. In the 1970s, the prison population in the United States was hovering around 300,000. Today it's hovering around 3 million. So we have gone from 300,000 to 3 million, which is as always, I was told there'd be no math, but I'm pretty sure that's 10 times the number of incarcerated people in the last 50 years. Now, our population hasn't grown 10 times in the last 50 years. We don't have 10 times more Americans than we did in 1970. So why is it that we have 10 times more incarcerated people? That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, especially when you consider that the recidivism rate, people going back to prison, is literally through the roof, right? The odds that you're going to go back to prison are far greater than the odds that you're going to stay out. And it's tough to get a nationwide average on the recidivism rate because it varies so much state by state. And it also varies a great deal if you're a federal inmate versus a state inmate. But it really is one of those situations where there is an awful lot of recidivism. People that just get into this revolving door, situation where you go into prison and you get sober and, you put some weight back on and probably work out a little bit and seem to get your life looking like it's going to be in order. And of course, every inmate on the way out the door says, I am never coming back to this place. It's very, very rare that somebody says, I intend to go back. I have heard it, but it's rare. TC said that he has done 10 calendars. People, that means full ones, right? That's a full year, right? And that's a long time. I speak from experience. That is a very long time. And he could probably attest to most of what I'm about to say. The vast majority of people that you come across in prison are in there for drugs. I mean, the vast majority. Most estimates have it at about 80%. And I think that doesn't take into account people that rob banks to get dope. That doesn't look on paper like it's a drug crime, but I can assure you that very often the reason that people rob banks is not because, they've seen the Fast and Furious movies and think that they're going to, buy Rolex watches and Ferraris with the gains that they get from bank robberies. More often than not, it's out of desperation to feed a habit that has gotten so expensive that they can't think of any other option. So the vast majority of people in prison are in there for drugs. So when did all of this happen? At what point did we decide that it was a really good idea to incarcerate everybody who had a drug habit? I'm not going to get into the political part of this because I really am trying to not do that. Hold on one moment here. I think he said I was in for jewelry. I had one of the biggest jewelry racketeers in Burlington, Vermont. I know Burlington very well, home of the University of Vermont and Ken's Pizza on Church Street. I could tell you Ken's Pizza stories for a very long time. I used to spend a lot of time in Ken's down in the basement. But anyway, I digress viciously. Here's the thing. Again, I don't want to get into the politics of this. So go ahead and do a little research. And you will see exactly when it was decided that this was a really good idea. Under one particular president here in the United States, the vast majority of all of the prisons that were built under this one particular administration. And I don't care. Honestly, I don't care which side of the aisle they're on. I just want to speak to the fact that we got to a point in this country where we said we can beat drugs by locking up everybody that's on drugs. This is literally one of the dumbest ideas in a very, very long time. And, there's been a lot of really, really stupid ideas in government over the years. But I think this one takes the cake. This war on drugs goes all the way back to the Nixon administration, but somewhere along the lines, we got this zero tolerance thing on drugs, and really started to crack down on not on drug dealers, although we did, but primarily on small time people. Users started spending a lot of time incarcerated, and there's no deterrent whatsoever. You would think that there is, but there isn't. It's not a deterrent. And sadly, there's no rehabilitation whatsoever when you get in there. In spite of the fact that Rule 3661, I think it's called. If I'm missing that, I'm not missing it by much. I'm doing my dyslexic thing. But those are the 4 digits in some order. And it is the federal code for incarceration. And it talks about what the purpose of incarceration is. One, it is to protect the general public from the person that's being locked up. Right? Now, if that person is a violent criminal, that makes a ton of sense, right? If you got somebody that is a murderer or a rapist, you want to incarcerate that person so that they can't do any damage to society for a specific period of time, right? I think that makes sense to everybody. The second reason that you lock them up is in hopes of rehabilitating that person so that when they leave the correctional facility, they're a better person than when they walked in. Good concept. You're protecting society that way. The third is to straight punish that person, right? And the fourth is a deterrent. By locking that person up, other people will look and say, well, I'm not going to do drugs because look what happened to Tommy, or look what happened to TC, or look what happened to whoever. The truth of the matter is the only thing that they're doing is punishing. And they will lie to your face. I know that I've spoken about this in the past, but I went to something called the SMU, which was the Special Management Unit. It is the worst prison in the Bureau of Prisons. You're locked down 23 hours a day. You only get out 1 hour for rec time, which you spend in cages. You have to wear 2 sets of handcuffs every time you leave your cell, and you're escorted by 3 officers if you're not in the cell. So it's a very, very maximum security, very intense with the supervision. And when I was preparing to go to the Special Management Unit, the woman that I was engaged to at the time was an attorney, and she mailed me all the paperwork so that I knew what was coming, what I was looking at. I had spent about 14 months in the segregated housing unit, sometimes called the Hole, waiting to then get shipped off to this prison. And when I got there, the shock was, truthfully, it was a shock, because I read what Congress read in terms of what the Special Management Unit was. And they said that they were going to take gang members from all the different gangs and get them in the same room and teach them to get along with one another. And you had to do drug classes virtually every single day. And all of these things designed to help you rehabilitate. And then I got there, and at no point did I leave my cell for a year and a half. The only time I ever left the cell was to shower, which we did 3 days a week, or to go to rec, which we did 5 days a week. That is it. There was no other time. It was just a bull-faced lie. But they're getting huge money from Congress for all of these programs, right? This is an epidemic, right? It really is. And I don't just mean the drugs. I'm talking about incarceration. The United States of America, depending on which statistic you want to believe, makes up somewhere in the ballpark of 4 or 5% of the population of the planet, right? So of all of the people walking around on planet Earth today, about 4 or 5% of them are Americans. Yet we make up somewhere between 25 and 26% of everybody incarcerated is in the U.S. That's an issue, right? That doesn't make a tremendous amount of sense if you think about it. Obviously, something's going on. We're locking up far too many people, right? And if these prisons are as bad as they are, why are people continuing to come back? Well, because the United States of America has determined that the best way to treat drug addiction is to lock a person up, take away all of their liberty, and hopefully in the process, take away their ability to do drugs. Don't give them a shred, and I mean a shred, of any kind of counseling. Now, there are going to be people who say, well, they've got that regional drug program, RDAP, where it's a residential program where you go to drug classes every day. Absolutely right. Every single inmate in the feds has an opportunity to try to sign up for RDAP. The trouble is, RDAP is not available on every prison yard, and the ones that it is available on, at any given time, they can have about 120 people out of a prison of, say, 1,300 who are able to go into this RDAP program, and a program that takes well over a year. If you do the math on that, it makes it very prohibitive to get a large number of people into that program. So as much as almost everybody is court-ordered into some kind of a treatment program, if you're not getting treatment yourself, you're not getting it. And then what happens is, when you walk out of prison after the time that you've done, you get about $50, right? So you spend 7 or 8 years incarcerated, and as you get ready to walk out the door, they hand you $50 or $60. I think it was $56. And you're then sent to a halfway house. And this is a true story, people. I'm telling you the gospel truth. They said to me at the institution I was at, all of your needs will be taken care of when you get to the halfway house. And I said, by all of my needs, what do you mean? And they said, well, you don't need to worry about taking your toothbrush and your toothpaste and shampoo or any of the hygiene stuff. That will be provided for you. And there's a program where you go down into the basement and there's a ton of clothing, and it may not be Polo or really nice stuff or Levi's, but they will get you set up with some clothing, and then you're going to get a card that will allow you to go to Walmart and spend up to $250 to get yourself started, so you can sort of get on your feet, and you can at that point try to get a job and start working. And I said, well, that's awesome, right? That's a start. That's enough. If you give me a start, I think I can make something happen. I knew I was sober at that point. I was vicious about the sobriety thing. So what ended up happening is, on the way out the door, I left everything that I had. I brought a Bible, which, by the way, was given as a gift to somebody on the lifeboat. But I brought a Bible. I brought the photos that I had been sent over the time that I was incarcerated, and some letters, and nothing else. I had the shirt on my back. I got out in October, but in a part of the country that was fairly warm. So I had on a pair of shorts, went a little below the knee, and I had a shirt, and the rest was all paperwork. I got to the halfway house and said, I need the hygiene pack. And the woman said, what's a hygiene pack? And I thought, oh, you've got to be kidding. I said, toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, deodorant, hygiene. She said, we don't give you any of that. Nothing. I said, what about clothing? She said, you didn't bring any? Think about how this works for somebody who's trying to re-enter society. How are you supposed to go and get a job interview? I'm blessed, people. I'm blessed to hell that, my big sister said, I'm calling and I'm making orders right now from 3 different places, and they will be delivered directly, because we were in there during the CMAF. She said, I will have the stuff delivered to you. You will have it in the next day or two. And they sent me a cell phone. They sent me everything that I could ever need. But what if I didn't have those people? Well, I watched that happen numerous times. Guys who came through the door being fed the same line of BS that I was, who came in there with nothing but the shirt on their back. And you see the best of people, because everybody there goes, oh, I got a pair of sweatpants you could have. And another guy says, well, I bought my toothbrushes by the 5-pack, so here's a toothbrush and some toothpaste. And another guy goes, well, you can have razors from me. And they put together some kind of a care package. But you would think that if they don't want someone to go back to prison, maybe the federal government would give you some kind of a care package so that a person could go get a job. Because to go and try to get a job wearing the clothing that you wore in prison doesn't really give anybody any kind of a chance. You understand what I'm saying? But this is how it works. You are thrown to the wolves. This is the same thing that they've been doing to inmates for decades. But you know what they're doing? They're doing the exact same thing over and over and over again, and they're expecting a different result. Insanity. Prison is not rehabilitating anyone. And there's nobody that argues the point. I mean, occasionally someone will get in there. I was blessed, right? I met a guy that wanted to see me sober and took me on as a project and really taught me a great deal. And then I went out of my way to educate myself on all of the things associated with my particular affliction. I started to study addiction and in particular, at least in the beginning, opiate addiction. And I really started to spend a lot of time warehousing. Beautiful. Yeah, it is called warehousing. And I'm going to touch on in a few minutes. I'm going to talk about the private prison industry and the effect that has. But you're right, it's warehousing. It's babysitting. That's all it is. And I'll be honest, people, they educate you, right? I mean, we all know what Pavlov's dog is, right? Ring the bell, the saliva happens, right? It's conditioning. Well, you would think that when you get to prison, the better you do, the more you perform as a productive member of society, right? Don't act like a criminal, and we'll reward you. And we will teach you through that process that if you do good, you have nothing to worry about. Do the right thing, and your future will get better. Very, very cool concept, correct? Whoa, some people who haven't been in prison have been throwing to the wolves. The government job is to run a country, not your life. I agree with you. But how much sense does it make, Michael, to turn someone loose with nothing in their pocket whose previous occupation was crime? If you send somebody out into the street with no education, with no rehabilitation, and you don't even give them clothing to wear to a job interview, what do you think they're going to do? What do you think they're going to do? They're going to go directly back to what they know, which is stealing, right? Or violence, or whatever the case may be. If the federal government takes on the responsibility of warehousing these people, then they might want to take on the responsibility of seeing them into society in such a way that doesn't create criminals who are worse than when they walked in. I went to prison. It was my fault. I don't put anything off on anyone. But to tell you that they're going to rehabilitate you and they're going to help you and they didn't do any of that. None. And according to the Bureau of Statistics in 2017, $182 billion would it be, was spent to warehouse all of the inmates in the United States. That works out to be somewhere in the ballpark of just under $40,000 per person. 40 grand a year per person. And I worked in a kitchen in the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and one of my jobs was to order all of the food. And I know that we paid, on average, about $1.60 a meal. So you start doing the math and going, where's all that money going? But regardless, it's the same thing done over and over and over again, expecting a different result. They continue to warehouse people and continue to believe that they're going to somehow walk out and say, I'm never going to do this ever again. I'm going to be great. I'm going to get a job with my $56. When I got to the airport in Oakland, California, and got in a taxi cab to go to the halfway house, it was $49. Right? I mean, there isn't even enough money to get you where you're going. And do they owe you something? No. I mean, they don't owe you anything. That's fine. But just know what's going to happen to 9 out of 10 of them. They're going to go back to what they know because they didn't learn anything while they were in. And the real problem that I have with this government is that they take tax dollars and then lie to the American people about what they're doing to educate these people. They'll tell you, read the BOP literature, and they'll say, if you want a college degree, we will pay for it. It doesn't happen. It's non-existent. It's a complete and utter lie. This is how they treat drug addiction. Instead of saying, you know, what landed this person in prison is drugs. So let's attack that. Let's see if we can't make this person get a little drug rehabilitation while they're in here. So that if we do decide to kick them out without so much as $1 in their pocket, that maybe they won't get high. Or take the $56 that we give them and buy 2 crack rocks and a 12-pack. All right? This is logical, isn't it? What we do is we take people and we put them into the university of crime. A guy walks in the door and he has been arrested for whatever, and we throw him in with individuals who, in many cases, are on their 4th or 5th prison sentence. And then we teach them something right from Jump Street. We say this: you get time off for good behavior. Makes sense. Now, if you get in, you do the right thing, you're going to do less time. Well, that is a very cool concept. That makes sense. Let's teach people that if they do the right thing, good things happen. However, if I go into my cell and I lay down on the bunk, and at 6 o'clock in the morning, I get up and I go to work. And then at 3 o'clock, I go to a voluntary drug program on the yard, which is run by inmates because they don't have one run by the staff. And I do this, and then I spend the rest of the day reading. And my cellmate, he gets up, runs an illegal card game, right? Or lays in bed all day long. Well, he gets the same good time that I do. If I have a job in the prison system, which pays me $18 a month, and he doesn't, we get the same good time. It would seem logical to me that if you give him time off for good behavior, the more good behavior, the more time off, and bad behavior would take away from that time. Like a fist fight. You get in a fist fight, you're going to do about another 60 days in prison. But how about if you teach people that if you don't go get a job, you're not going to get any good time? Right? How about if we teach people that you can actually make your life better if you do the right thing? But instead, people sit around the unit, and you can walk in the unit and go, what's up with that guy over there? The guy wearing the Nikes and the, got all of the nice clothes on, and he's got the big headphones, and, he either sells drugs, he runs a sports book, right? An illegal gambling ring within prison, or he's making moonshine. Those guys over there who look poverty-stricken and they're just wearing the clothing that was given to them by the federal government because they can't afford anything at the store. Those guys are working a 40-hour-a-week job for $18 a month. Anyone that's been to prison will tell you that the people in there that are living good are committing crime within the prison. And the guy that walks in and follows the rules and does everything right has the worst time you can imagine. I did my time that way. I did, because I knew I didn't have one more in me. I knew that if I relapsed again, I'd be dead. So I decided to try to rehabilitate myself. And I met a guy that really wanted to help. Thank God. Thank God. And one day, a staff member saw a white guy and a black guy sitting at a table talking to one another, which was incredible because that doesn't happen very often. And this person walked up and said, hey, what's up with this? Are you guys cool? Are you getting ready to fight? Because they basically segregate. And when we said, no, we're working on a sobriety thing, well, this staff member who had a degree in chemical dependency counseling said, if you really want to learn this stuff, I will bring you in all of the books that I had when I went through college. I don't even know if that's legal. Like they may call that compromising staff, but this person would bring me in those books 4 or 5 at a time. But none of this was done by the prison. There was none of that. Now, I did get a job making uniforms for our military for 40 cents an hour. Now, 40 cents an hour was the top of the food chain. I had to work there for a couple of years in order for that to happen. Right? I literally had to work for a couple of years. I did see a comment too that said I didn't have a television. In the federal system, you can't have a television. That is a state inmate thing. In the federal system, no one has a television set. There was a law passed many years ago called the Zimmermann Act that removed weights, removed televisions, removed dirty magazines, cigarettes, Basically anything that could be considered a comfort of home kind of a thing. Now, there are still some yards that have weights, but they're grandfathered in. If there was a weight pile there, they can never reorder anything. So you watch the inmates really try to make sure everyone takes care of the equipment, because if you break some of it, that's it, it's gone. Over even the time I was in, you watched many weight piles disappear because of attrition, just stuff breaking and things of that happening. But it really becomes a situation that, I don't know, in some ways, if you do manage to rehabilitate yourself in there, then you probably have a decent jump, because you're going to have to be self-sufficient to do it. You're going to have to be self-sufficient to do it. I had the perfect storm. I got a diagnosis of cerebral infarction, and I had a doctor that said to me, if you want to slow down the stuff that's happening in your brain, don't watch TV anymore. Like, stop watching TV. And I'm not great at following advice from people, to be honest. So in the beginning, I tried to watch TV, but the really fast editing of scenes would give me a vicious headache. So I was able to read, but the TV to this day, I can watch documentaries. I can watch things if they're not edited really fast. I could watch someone doing something like I'm doing now, because there's no editing. It's just one guy talking, and that's easy. But so for me, all I did was read books. But just from a logical standpoint, right? I'm no genius. But just from a logical standpoint, what if you said, because living with a man, right? Two guys in a walk-in closet with a toilet and a sink. I'm talking about a prison cell that's about 8 feet wide, right? So you can put your hands on the wall. 8 feet wide. It's got 2 bunk beds in it, a toilet and a sink. And it's about 13 feet long. And in there are 2 men with all of their possessions, right? Pretty disgusting. Very tough. What if you said to those inmates, if you go to work and you get a job, and on top of that job, you go to rehab, right? 3 nights a week, 5 nights a week, whatever they determine is the right number. If you go to drug rehabilitation 5 nights a week and you work a 40-hour-a-week job and you don't get a write-up for a year, we're going to double your pay. And we're going to allow you to wear slightly different clothing. You won't have to wear the same khakis that everybody else wears. Now, if you do a next year without a write-up, and you continue to do those 5 nights a week of drug classes, and you continue your 40-hour-a-week job or your education to get a GED or whatever they come up with, but on your second year, we're going to move you out of that 2-man cell, and we're going to move you into one a little bit bigger. We're going to move you into a cell that is, say, 15 feet long and 12 feet wide. On year 3 of never getting a write-up, never missing one drug class, continuing your education or continuing your 40-hour-a-week deal, bingo. How about a single? Now we're going to move you into a single cell with nobody else to bother you. And you know what? On year 4, we're going to give you a tablet. Now, that tablet is going to be restricted. You won't be able to do YouTube. You won't be able to do porn. But you'll be able to Google, and you'll be able to do, say, drug classes on it, or you'll be able to do any kind of knowledge-based stuff. Now, there are state places all over the country that have those tablets that they hand out to keep guys busy. But what if you made an educational thing out of it? What if you made it so that when a guy walked in, he learned that if I follow the rules and I do exactly what I'm supposed to, things are going to get better. No, they don't do that. They don't do any of that. But they should. What a great concept, right? Just from an idiot, right? I'm no genius. Why is it that they can't figure out things like this? Give people a reward for doing the right thing. See, the concept is supposed to be that you turn out a better man or woman than the person that walked in. Instead, what do we teach them? You're wasting your time getting the job. That's for suckers. You're going to make $15 a month for working 40 hours a week. That guy down there at the table playing poker, right? Gambling, he's making that every day. The guy running the sports book, the guy that's making the illegal moonshine, the guy that's dealing drugs, what you learn is that the guys that go to work and work their butts off and do the right thing, well, they don't live very well. It's really kind of stupid. But that's what they teach you. And then when a guy walks out and says, I don't have any money in my pocket, and now I'm supposed to try to get on my feet. Well, what have I learned in the last 6 years? I learned that trying to get on your feet doesn't work anyway. Right? What are they going to pay me? $10 an hour? I think I'll just go hustle. Same way I was doing in prison. I think I'll just go steal. Or I'll go get that $50 that they let me get out of there with, and I'll go buy a 50 bag. And I'll break that 50 bag into 4 bags that I'm going to sell for $25 a piece. I'm going to double my money. And then I'm going to go buy a bigger bag. And then I'm going to cut it a little bit. And if you don't think that's happening, people, every freaking day that guys are walking out of there, they're taking whatever money they got and they're starting the hustle. There are guys that start selling dope within a day of being back on the street. What else are they going to do? What else do they know? We didn't teach them. And what do we call this? We call this rehabilitation. That's what we call this. We call this rehabilitation. Under one president in particular, the Federal Bureau of Prisons alone built 37 new prisons under one prison administration. I got one for you, people. I got one for you. Because what I'm talking about is educating people in order to turn them into a better human being. And if that offends anybody, yeah. But that's what I'm talking about. Do you know how we figure out, if you've been on the boat long enough, you've heard me say this, but how do we figure out how many prison beds to make? What if you screw up? What if way more people commit crimes and there's nowhere to put them? I mean, where do they come up with this? I have to have enough beds for this many people. They check illiteracy rates in the 4th grade. So right now, they're checking the illiteracy rates across the United States in the 4th grade. Based on that number, they know how many prison beds they need to start making now for when those guys and gals become old enough to go to prison. That's a fact. That's how they determine. That's the math. That's how they know how many beds to make. By checking how many kids in the 4th grade can't read. Well, wouldn't that tell everybody that actually it wasn't Ronald Reagan? No, I'll give you a hint. He played the saxophone. Anyway, it's about education. Right? If you know that educating kids in the 4th grade, that the worse education going on and the higher illiteracy rate in the 4th grade means that they're going to go to prison, why would you let them get into prison and not educate them? If you know that a lack of education causes crime, when you got someone locked up and you can force them to do anything, why wouldn't you force them to get educated? I mean, holy crap. How obvious is this? And I'll tell you something. Is it the government's responsibility? You betcha. When they lock somebody up, it's their responsibility to do something with them when they're locked up. It is. I mean, when they take away your liberty and they take away everything that you have and you're in there naked waiting for them to put clothes on your back, waiting for them to feed you, yeah. And the responsibility is not to make me a good person. It's to protect society from me. Because if you bring me in there and you surround me with guys that have done crimes 500 times worse than the ones I've done, and you don't do anything but let us hang out all day long and talk about what crimes we committed and where you might want to do better this next time. I mean, I used to watch guys at tables drawing out how they did their identity theft stuff. Oh, no, don't try that. That doesn't work at all. What you want to do is this program here, write this down. And these guys take notes. And I'm looking around the room going, oh, education's taking place. On the other table over there is a guy telling somebody a different recipe for methamphetamine. No, don't waste your time with that red, white, and blue crap. No, you want to do the anhydrous cook. So much easier. Here's where you can go steal anhydrous ammonia, right? And find yourself a farm, because they're going to be using this stuff as fertilizer every day. On every prison yard in the United States of America, this is happening. It's the university of crime. And somehow, they call that rehabilitation. I don't know. Right? Is what it is. Is what it is. But the amazing thing is that there's nobody on this planet, literally, no one on this planet, that won't tell you that the reason that most people go to prison in the first place is drugs. No one argues that. 8 out of 10, right? Well, then what do you think is going to be sending them back? Pretty obvious? Oh, apparently not. Because if it was pretty obvious, then there should really only be one thing they worry about when that person goes to prison, right? And that would be trying to figure out how to make sure. When I went to prison, I learned how to forge paychecks, cook meth, and hustle. You bet. You betcha. And you could tell me how to blow off a bag of Pruno, or how to make a shank, or how to light fire with a battery, right? Certain things every convict learns in the first 20 minutes they're in there, right? You give me a battery and a piece of tin foil and I can create fire. Because these are the things that you learn, right? It's pretty damn sad. But this is the truth. This is what's happening. This is what's passing for rehab. Now, in the federal system, I got a job. After 2 years of having that job, I was making 40 cents an hour. You know what I was doing? I was making uniforms for the military. Not just ours. No. I made uniforms for the American military. I made uniforms for the military in the UK, Israel. How bad does it suck if you got a company that makes uniforms? Can you imagine competing with slaves? 40 cents an hour? How the hell could you compete with that? Well, they got a slave labor department in there. Big one. Big one. It's called Unicor. You can look it up. And when you look up Unicor, there'll be a little spot on the bottom that says, hey, you got something that you want made in the federal system? How would you like some really cheap labor? That kind of thing makes you wonder if, I don't know, if you needed a whole bunch of guys to work for 40 cents an hour, you could probably pass a few laws to just go after people that got high, right? You could make it so that if you got caught with, say, a 20 bag of methamphetamine, that you're looking at a 3-year prison sentence. Now, am I being paranoid? I don't know, right? This prison industrial complex? Well, here's the thing. If I'm being paranoid, then there probably wouldn't be private prisons, right? Private prisons. They have one of the biggest lobbying arms on the planet. Think about how scary that is. You guys know what lobbyists are? They're people who go to Washington and spread around a crap load of money to get politicians to vote one way or the other. What do you think those private prison lobbyists are trying to get the people in Congress to do? Do the math. They're saying we need longer prison sentences. We need to incarcerate people on their second time, not their third, right? We need to make sure that if a person gets caught with a gun, felon in possession of a firearm, that they get 5 years for the gun and 1 year for every bullet in the gun. So if a guy's got, a banana clip, he gets 30 years plus the gun. Like, that's the kind of thing that they're lobbying for, right? Because they need to fill their private prisons, right? If you're inmate 413562, you're a paycheck. You're a stock certificate. You're worth a ton of money to a private prison. But that private prison goes out of business unless enough people are getting incarcerated. Does it scare the hell out of you that we have private prisons? If it doesn't, shame on you. Shame on you. Because there's something really wrong with that as a concept. Don't you think? And if by some chance it's okay to have private prisons, then they shouldn't be allowed to freaking lobby for anything. I mean, how is that okay? People, I'm not a bleeding heart. I'm not here to say that, none of these people should go to prison. If you hurt somebody, you should go to prison. If you rob a bank, you ought to go to prison. But if you're incarcerated for your third possession of marijuana charge, there's something so wrong with that. I mean, really. Locking a person up who wanted to get high, I think there's something wrong with that. I wasn't that guy. I had it coming. I did. I had it coming. And I'll be really honest with you, I had a ton of chances. A ton. So I'm not doing the, it's god awful that they locked me up. I mean, I was innocent. I'm not that guy. I'm not doing that. But this has sort of been a series on why the hell we're losing between 300 to 600 people a day to drug overdoses in this country. Well, imagine having all of those drug addicts under your complete control without their ability to really say no to much for, say, 3 to 5 years. How much good could you do? Don't ask the prison system, because they're not trying at all. They're not. That's pretty sad. It's pretty sad that this is treatment for drug addiction in this country. That's pretty sad. And they will lie. I didn't abandon ship. I've just been hiding. Well, good. We're glad you didn't abandon ship. It's good to see you, Major. It really is. Hold on one moment. Sorry, people, but I saw a comment here I think I wanted to read. What? Private prisons? Wrong. Yeah, private prisons. I mean, how messed up is that? Especially when you consider just how massive the lobby for private prisons are. And the big one, people, would be called Corrections Corps of America, CCA, is one of the largest of the private prisons. You want to have a little fun? Do a little deep dive and see who owns a massive amount of Corrections Corps of America. For all of you who say I'm a right-wing crazy, there is a right-wing family in this country that owns a pile of that company. A huge amount of that company. No, but Bob Barker. No, Bob Barker is... obviously, you have been to prison. Jonathan Hicks. Oh, people, that's a great... Oh, that is an inside prison joke, people. Everything inside is made by Bob Barker. The shoes, the soap, the toothbrush, the combs. Oh, everything says Bob Barker on it. That is really funny, Jonathan. That's awesome. Very, very funny, man. That is very, very funny. You made my night. But yeah, if you, there is a very large political family that owns a very large chunk of CCA. And I find all that frightening. When you start following the money for these private prisons and seeing who owns them, how can you go to Congress, bring money there, and tell a senator, we need to make the drug laws stiffer, and I will donate $6 million to your campaign? Of course, you can't donate more than $4,000, right? Or $2,000, depending on what office the person is running for. So you donate it to a political action committee, a PAC. And then you do things like, well, this private prison would like to talk to you about perhaps building a prison in your state. We would like some tax breaks because we're going to bring a bunch of jobs into your state. So we would like to not pay any state income tax for, say, the first 10 years. But let's not talk about it here. Let's go to the Bahamas and talk about it. Happens constantly, people. Let's go to Switzerland and talk about it. After the congressman or woman gets a free trip to Switzerland for a week or two to talk to these people that own the private prisons, what chance do you think anybody has of that bill not getting pushed through? That's how the whole lobbying thing works, people. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you suck. Honestly. So, you know what? Since we're doing politics and people are going to say, you know what? You're a right-wing lunatic or you're a left-wing lunatic. Bill Clinton was the president that built all those prisons. He was. The family that owns a very large chunk of CCA is the Bush family. So you can hate them on both sides of the equation, and I'm totally cool with that because I don't like either of them. Honestly, I don't like either party. I love it when you guys send emails and say that I'm, half of you give me crap for being a Democrat and the other half give me crap for being a Republican. I'm a sober cat. That's what I am. Yeah, be whatever you want to be. I'm a little from column A and a little from column B. But since, I would say the last 7 years, this is all I give a crap about. For real. I mean, this is the focus of the rest of my life. Because of what I did with the first half of my life, this is what I'm doing with the second half of my life. And for that reason, I'm calling out anybody that I think is doing something to make it harder for people to get sober. The golden rule, guy, you can't go wrong, brother. Well played. None of the above. Major, I love it, man. In fact, that ought to be on there, right? How do you want to vote? None of the above. Yeah, not a great... Prison industry is just like the military-industrial complex. It is bad. Money is too big to resist for these people. Boom. The similarities between the prison industrial complex and the military industrial complex is staggering. And where they overlay, guess where all of the Humvees are customized to go into battle in other countries? Victorville, California, at the federal prison system. And then again, all of the uniforms are made at 3 different prisons. They're made in Indiana, they're made in Georgia, and there's one other place where they make them. And then all of the wiring harnesses for the missiles, those are done in Phoenix, Arizona. If you look at what these jobs are, the government gets a whole hell of a lot of free labor. Well, it's not free, but it's real close to free. It's really, really close to free. But they have, literally tens of thousands of employees who are working for the big dollar ones, 40 cents an hour. That's big money inside. But when you start looking at all of it, it just smells bad, right? The whole thing just stinks. Like corruption and greed and awfulness. Yeah, and they pocket the taxes for it. You betcha they do. You bet they do. And yeah, this smells bad. So the people that hear what I'm saying and make comments like, hey, it's not the government's responsibility. The government doesn't owe you anything. They lock you up. Take away your freedom for breaking the law. They owe you, right? 3 hot meals, right? They got to feed you. Do you agree with that? They got to feed you. They got to give you an opportunity to take a shower. Wouldn't all of that make sense? Tell you what, keep the shower, right? Seriously, cut me down to 1 meal a day and try to make me sober so that when I walk out of that dump, I got a shot at being a human being. Don't warehouse me and then kick me out with $50 in my pocket and piss and moan when I come back. Shocked. Can't believe you went out and committed another crime. Of course they go out and commit other crimes. You don't give them any other option. I mean, honestly. Now, people, I haven't committed any other crime, right? I'm out. By their standards, I'm a success story. But I didn't get a shred of help from them in the process. I did this with the help of a black guy named Q. Maybe one of the 3 or 4 best people I've ever met. Seriously, an angel on earth. And if they were about rehabilitation and things like that, he'd be free. He'd be free. Because that's a cat that has rehabilitated himself. He has worked at that Unicor, by the way, for almost 30 years. I mean, imagine having a job that paid you 40 cents an hour and not quitting over the course of 3 decades, if that doesn't say rehabilitated, what does? You know, but it's not what it's about. It's about punishing people. It's about warehousing people. You know, that really is what it is about. And I don't know, you know, from time to time, people, from time to time, I go off on a rant. But I had so many people. I made more than you did, guy. And, well, and here's the thing. By way of full disclosure, on my second year, I would get a $1 a week bonus for longevity pay. So, I mean, it did get to a point where, I mean, if with overtime, the biggest check that I ever made in 1 month, I think it was like $105 or $106 or something, which in there is a lot of money. I mean, especially if you're not doing drugs. Like the only thing I bought was coffee, you know, bought a lot of coffee. That's, you know, an awful lot of coffee. But we're talking a lot lately, you know, about what's causing all of these people to, you know, to overdose. Well, if you got 3 million people incarcerated, 80% of them have a drug problem. Don't you think the government should spend a little bit more time and money to try to turn out people that aren't going to use again? Wouldn't that make the most sense? At $182 billion a year. Take $5 billion and put it into rehab. $5 billion. You know? I'll tell you another story. True story. I've reached out and said, would you be willing to let me go and talk to inmates? No. After 20 years of not committing another crime, after getting out, I can petition to be able to go and talk to inmates. People, I don't want to go in and shake the hand. I just wanted to go and stick them all in the auditorium and let me get on stage and talk to them and just tell them that it's possible. And I don't want to talk to guys that are close to the gate. I want to talk to guys that are walking in the door. You know, I said, how about you let me make a video? I'll pay for it. No, they don't have any interest in any of that. But I'd like to make a video and just say, I know that right now your future looks grim. I know that you're terrified, right? I know that it's frightening. But I'm here to tell you that if you don't ever want to go back to prison, the only chance you got is you. Because these people aren't going to do anything to help you. So you better help yourself. You know, if you continue to do the same stuff you were doing on the street inside, you're going to come back. You know, if you're hustling, right? You're running cons, you're gambling, you're doing drugs, whatever. Really kind of basic stuff. But I had a warden at a federal prison. We came into the system, and there were about 30 of us that had come in on the bus, and we sat down in the chow hall, and he came walking in, and this was his speech. I swear to you. He came in and he said, if you get caught with a shank or any improvised weapon on my yard, I will get you another 3 years in prison. You know what a shank is, people, right? It's a knife carved out of anything sharp, metal, plastic, whatever, enough to puncture a person. It's a weapon. So he starts by saying, if I catch you with a shank, you're going to do another 3 years. We're going to prosecute you with a new crime. Then he said, if the wrong guy on this yard catches you without a shank, you're dead. So you make the call. That was his entire speech. Swear to you. I looked at the guy next to me and went, is he telling me to get a knife? Like to this day, I'm still not quite sure what the hell he was saying. I mean, was this cat encouraging me to carry a weapon? But that was the warden said that. You know? The amount of hate, yeah, shank, shiv, right, peace, bone crusher, right, friendly. They got a ton of names, right? Ice pick, all the same thing, right? All the same thing. Hey, once again, people, if this is offending any of you, thicken up your skin a little bit. Honestly, I guess there was only one of you that got bummed out at me. Not the first time that individual has decided that they don't like me. I don't know what it is. I'm a nice guy. No? Squirrel likes me. All right, people. Tomorrow night, my bobble-headed partner will be back with me. And that really is a good thing. He was encouraging new inmates to stay out of trouble. You think that's what he was doing, Greta? If the wrong guy catches you without a knife, you're dead. That almost makes it sound to me like he's telling you to carry a knife. It really left me perplexed. But a lot about that system left me perplexed. But I don't know, honestly. I mean, the first part sounded that way. If I catch you with a shank, you're going to do another 3 years in prison. So I'm there going, okay, well, I don't need to carry a shank then. I don't want to do 3 more years in prison. And if the wrong guy catches you without one, you're dead. Now I'm thinking maybe he wants me to carry a shank. So he finishes up with so you make the call. Yeah, I don't know. To this day, I'm not quite sure, but I can tell you this. I watched that man get cut, that warden, through a 3-piece suit. Took 72 staples, right? From Victorville, California. You can Google that one. That one, they still talk about that one. That was a bad one. I was there for that. All right, people. Tomorrow night, my bobble-headed partner will be back. And I'm always happy when he is. He runs a much tighter ship than I do. And he's just a great guy, and I miss him. I mean it. All right. We will both be back tomorrow night. Same bat time. Same bat channel. Thank you for letting me go off, people. But so many of you had written and asked about the prison thing. Honestly, I thought it was a pretty good time to talk about it. And that's it. Tommy and family, I am grateful to have met you. God bless everyone. Can't wait to see Mark. Yay. You know what? I agree. I can't wait either. But before then, you know what time it is, people. Yep. I am Captain Tommy Scoville. Mark is not on the other side of the glass, but this is a cat in a basket. By the way, she really is alive. There you go. See the ears move? All right, good night, everybody. I love you. We'll see you tomorrow night. Well played, squirrel. You're a good kitty. No?